You know, in the first part of our look at Stu Hart and his legacy as one of the greatest trainers and pro wrestling promoters in world history, based out of Calgary, Alberta, Canada, today we're going to be talking more about specifically what caused him to be one of the most respected and feared trainers who helped develop some of the greatest WWF, WCW, Japanese, Mexican, Canadian, and other top federations wrestlers of all time. Now, Hart trained the vast majority of his athletes for Stampede Wrestling in the basement of the Hart Mansion, known as the Dungeon. Hart used the location from the time he bought it in October 51 until the late 1990s. All 8 of his sons and many others, such as Junkyard Dog, Jushin Thunder Liger, Superstar Billy Graham, and the British Bulldog, were educated there. Now, Hart's training technique, feared and not say Perry did, hey, when you come down the dungeon, I'll stretch you up there. Now, called stretching, consisted of Hart putting his trainees in painful submission holds and holding out for a substantial time to improve their pain endurance to prepare them for the life of pro wrestling. Many times it would cause the veins in his athletes' eyes to pop, which was considered the red eye approach. Now, it was well known around the world, and he would not let anyone who wished to let him apply one of his holds do so if they came to his home. Hart's son Brett once spoke about a well-known case where he stretched a priest, stating that his father wasn't prejudiced, since he stretched a rabbi once too. Some of Hart's former students, including son Brett, have mentioned that this stretching would sometimes result again in broken blood vessels in the eyes, something which others have attempted to learn from his father. Now, Hart was said to have a special liking for training football players and bodybuilders since he enjoyed testing their strength. Some have described his training as torture, and having accused of Hart of being a sadist who enjoyed inflicting pain on people and was more interested in doing so than teach them professional wrestling. Many who were close to Hart at the time have denied these claims. Stu's seventh son Ross has said his father was always generous and compassionate with his children and others in person, but added that he was different when training people, believing that there was no easy way to teach wrestling. His daughter-in-law Martha has expressed in her book that she felt sure that Hart was well aware of his students' limits and never meant it to actually harm any of them, stating that he was always careful not to apply too much pressure on any of his holds and intended more to scare them than to maim them. Although she recalled several times when she thought she was passed out from the pain of the holds he had put on her, which he had meant as a playful gesture, she added that it was fair to say that he had never seriously hurt anyone physically, albeit he may have inadvertently done so mentally. Now, despite this, she also disclosed that her husband Owen had long been scared of his father during childhood due to his fearsome reputation and hearing his brothers as well as other trainees' screams from the family's basement where Hart's training hall was located. This fear lingered into Owen's adolescence but ceased when he became an adult. Owen himself revealed in the 1997 documentary Hitman Hart, Wrestling to Its Shadows, created by the National Film Board, that he was often intimidated by his father but respected him, and that kept him from misbehaving. In the same doc, his third son Keith explained that many may have believed his father to be a psychopath at first glance, but they had to know him intimately to understand that he wasn't anything like that beneath the surface. Now, wrestling manager Jim Cornette has theorized that his cruel upbringing and tough early development may have played a part in the seemingly contradictory behavior from Hart, as both a dedicated family man and apparently sadistic tormentor of students. Now, he trained many athletes, including Abdul the Butcher, Archie Stomper Goldie, Billy Jack Haynes, all the Hart family, including Dean, Smith, Ross, Wayne, Brett, Keith, Bruce, and Owen, Brian Pillman, God bless his soul, Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, Yvonne Durrell, Christian, Jesse Ventura, Davey Boy Smith, his son David Hart Smith, Dynamite Kid, Edge, Fritz Von Erich, Gama Singh, Gorilla Monsoon, Greg Valentine, the Honky Tonk Man, Jake Roberts, Jim Neidhart, Carl LeDuc, Joe LeDuc, Junkyard Dog, Jushin Thunder Liger, Justin Credible, Ken Shamrock, Lance Storm, Larry Cameron, Hiro Hossie, Mark Henry, Masachono, Natalia Neidhart, Nikolai Volkov, Paul LeDuc, Ricky Fuji, Roddy Piper, Shinji Hashimoto, Steve Blackman, Superstar Billy Graham, Tyson Kidd, Al Oeming, Jonathan Holiday, Dino Ventura, Sandor Kovacs, and Steve Patrick. Now, Hart was also close friends with fellow wrestler Luther Jacob Goodall, better known by his name Luther Lindsay. Now, Goodall was one of the few men who bested him in the infamous dungeon, and Hart reportedly carried a picture of him in his wallet until he passed in 2003. Goodall's death in 1972 affected Hart tremendously. Hart's sons Keith described them as being as close as brothers. He was also a good friend of the wrestling promoter Jack Pfeiffer, who he asked to be the godfather of his son Ross, as well as Calgary Bear Rod Sykes, and of course the great Brian Conacher, the ice hockey player. All the wrestling belts that Hart used for promotion were handmade by himself, and making championship belts was Hart's many domestic skills. Now, 12 children in the Hart mansion, including all the male wrestlers. Now, because of his extensive work as a coach and mentor to the many young athletes, as well over 30 years of charitable work in his hometown, Stu Hart was appointed a member of the Order of Canada in 2000, and he was honored with an investiture on May 31st, 2001. Now, when he passed away at the age of 88, nearly 1,000 people came out for his funeral. Now, as one of the most regarded and respected people in the history of professional wrestling, he became an icon of what's called the kayfabe, or the art of true pro wrestling. Now, sports journalist Dave Metzler described Hart's importance to the art of professional wrestling and is indispensable. Now, many wrestlers would not have had a career in the sport were it not for Stu Hart, specifically what Metzler said, Chris Benoit and Brian Pillman, specifically because they needed to have their style holes. Now, Hart's noticeable accent included a very raspy voice, and his unique way of speaking was well known. Now, he is probably the most imitated person in Canadian history. If you can do a Stu Hart, yeah, the young journalist here from the Maritimes, he's doing a podcast on me today, and he may not know everything about me, but he's respectful, and so I mean, you not say we made fun of him, because someone with a voice like that, you would not expect him to be a stretcher. He would put, I think why they call it stretching, because he would end up in a stretcher. Now, the Hart Legacy promotion, there's also a Stu Hart Heritage title. There's also an annual juvenile amateur wrestling tournament named after Hart called the Stu Hart Tournament of Champions held in Canada. Now, in Saskatoon's Blairmore Suburban Centre, there's a road named Hart Road, and Stu Hart's over. Now, book by Blake Norton, Surviving the Dragon, The Legacy of Stu Hart, and there's a permanent display at the Glenbow Museum. A scissored armbar wrestling hold is sometimes referred to as a Stu Lock in Hart's honor. Now, the many Hall of Fames he's part of is just too many to count, but we'll go over a few. Canadian Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, 1980. Cauliflower Alley Club, 2001, Iron Mike Award. Joe Tragos Luthez Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, 2008. Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame, 2004 inductee. Stampede Wrestling Hall of Fame, 95. WWE Hall of Fame, 2010. WCW Lifetime Achievement Award. Wrestler Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame. Canadian Wrestling Hall of Fame, individually and with the Hart family. And the Prairie Wrestling Alliance Hall of Fame class of 2010. Also the Order of Canada, a member, and his investiture came after November 15th, 2000. He won the Western Legacy Awards and the Calgary Awards, the Signature Award in 1999. So Stu Hart, trainer, legend, promoter, all-around person to develop sports at every level. But if you have any kids in your family, girls or guys that want to get into wrestling or amateur wrestling, tell them the story with Stu Hart, because he came from nothing and he became everything, and that's the best way to describe him. Thanks for listening. Bye.